Okay, we're ready for the Unit 3 review worksheet for the Math 4 course. And I thought this was appropriate for an inverse. All right, first one. My suggestion with these is usually that you subtract down and start out with negative exponents first, and then simplify from there. Negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. 3 minus 2 leaves me x to the 1. Negative 9 minus 2 leaves me y to the negative 11. Now, I can do this on top and this on the bottom. Like I said, subtract them first and just do them all positive and negative, and then resolve your negative exponents. And I will warn you on the test, it will say to leave your exponents as positive results. All right, so the same thing's going to happen here. I'm going to wind up with a 3. X to the 3 minus negative 4, that's 3 plus 4, that's x to the 7. And then y to the negative 1 minus 0, and z to the negative 1 minus 0. That's going to give me 3x to the 7 on the top, and a y and a z on the bottom. Now this one is probably easier if we reduce the one guy to the same base. 3 to the 1/2 times 3 squared to the 1/3. Well, that's going to be 3 to the 1/2 times 3 to the 2/3. Now, at this point, we would normally add our exponents. But therein lies the issue. What is 1/2 plus 2/3? Well, I'm going to rewrite it in terms of a common denominator, 3 over 6 and 4 over 6. Which is going to give me 7 over 6. So my final answer is going to be 3 to the 7 over 6. Now, they said no decimals. So that's, unless you want to go to a sixth root of something, that's probably the easiest way to leave it right there. Now, this guy, as much as you think, well, 32 times 2 is 64, you're talking about exponents here. It's not 32 squared, it's 32 times 2 is 64. So that's not really going to work. You're going to have to break it down and realize that all of these have a base of 2. And 64 is 2 to the 6th. Well, that means I should be able to say that 5 times x minus 2 is equal to 6, which is that. Add the 10 to the other side, divide both sides by 5, and I'm going to wind up with that because they said no decimals. So otherwise I would be saying something like 3.2. All right, rewrite each of these in logarithmic form. We're going to have log base 5, the exponent goes over here, and the 10y goes in the middle. Log base e, the 4g goes over here, and the 3.2h goes in the middle. Now, log base e, you can rewrite that. Don't ever, ever, ever leave a final answer as log base e. Always rewrite it as natural log. Here we're going the other way. We're going from logs to exponentials. Now, this one we are going to have to rewrite as log base e. So that we can say e to the 3m equals 2.3. And here we're going to say 7 to the 17.3 equals 5p. That is not going to be a small number. 7 to the 17th power, you're talking about at least 10 or 15 digits. So that your calculator is probably going to laugh at you and give you an e something. But thankfully, we don't have to solve it. We just have to rewrite it. All right, this guy gets interesting. First of all, we want to take the fourth root and reimagine it this way. as raising that to the 1/4 power. Then we're going to move the 1/4 out in front. Then we're going to split it up, 1/4 log f plus 1/4 log g cubed plus 1/4 log h, which means that we are going to finally have 1/4 log f. That 3, well, you would normally take the 3 and bring it out in front of the log and say 3 times log of g. Well, we've already got 1/4 times log of g, so we're going to say 3 times 1/4 times log of g. Well, 3 times 1/4 is 3/4. And we need to be aware that this guy is a little different. Okay. Now this one, actually, instead of expanding it, we're actually going to wind up shrinking it because we're going to have to think of it in these terms. And we can do this. And 125 is also 5 cubed, which raised to the 3rd power, raised to the 1/3 power means that I've just got log of 5 when I'm done. So yeah, instead of expanding it, we actually shrunk it. All right, this one's interesting. This one, I put the 5 out front. And then we're going to separate them, 5 natural log of u squared plus 5 natural log of v. And then when the 2 comes around the front, we'd have the same problem. 5 times natural log is now 5 times 2 times natural log, which is 10 natural log of u plus 5 natural log of v. Now, this guy, the first time I tried it, I thought to myself, ooh, there's a common factor of 4 there. Let me factor out the 4 and watch what happens. And I actually created more work for myself. Let's watch what happens when we simply move these back in front and say log base 5 of a to the 8th plus log base 5 of b to the 4th. Means that we will say log base 5, and these will be multiplied. And that's about as condensed as you're going to get. All right, and this one does something curious. If we move the 2 back over on top of the 10, and then we do log of 100 minus log of 25, and we're subtracting there, which means that we can do division, which means log of 4, and that's about as far as we can go. Oh, this one does some wild things. And this is one of those cases where I had warned you to have your squares and cubes memorized. And if you did, then you would recognize that 27 is 3 cubed. And we ought to be able to make some use of that knowledge. That would be like saying log base 3 of 3 to the 15 over 6. Now, remember what happens when your bases turn out to be the same, both with the log base and with the exponential base. They cancel out. And so all I am left with is 15 over 6, which is about 2.5. They didn't say anything about no decimals on this one, so we'll go to 2.5. All right, this one's a curious one. One thing is to remember that the square root is like doing something to the 1/2 power. Now, you almost feel like you're stuck here because as long as the 81 is in the base of the log, you can't really do anything with it. And so what I've made the suggestion in times past is that when they ask you to evaluate something and you're kind of stuck, set it equal to x. And now you've got some players. Now you can rearrange it as not a logarithm, but as an exponential. Now the playing field is a little more level because we remember that 81 is 9 times 9, which is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Well, that would be 3 to the 4th x equals 3 to the 1/2. That's saying 4x equals 1/2. If I divide both sides by 4, now I got 1/8 or 0.125, either way. Okay. All right. Find two ways. I tell you what, I'm going to pause here and split the video in half and then pick up on the other half.